Introducing first, from Toronto, Ontario, weighing in at 113 Cornish game hands, it's Taco Tuesday, Tyler! Yeah! And his opponent, weighing in at 823 lilac-breasted rollers, it's Wee Willie Walnuts! Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to 141 and 2/3%, the wrestling podcast hosted by two lapsed wrestling fans who could literally stop watching wrestling at any time. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Will.
Guys, we did it. We've been talking about it behind the scenes. We've been thinking about it, and it's finally happening. We're recording a goddamn wrestling podcast. I'm not going to say we're the most unqualified to record, but
we're among the bottom.
We're near the bottom. You know, like I said in the intro, we are two lapsed wrestling fans. I'm like a 94 to like 2003. You can kind of extend that a little bit. You know, I still watch WrestleMania every year. I watch the Royal Rumble every year, and I just came back about a year ago. What's your history with wrestling? What's your era? What's your golden age?
Well, I think it would probably be, so for a little bit of context here for people who are tuning into the show, have no idea who we are. Tyler and I, we go back a long ways, but our age gap sometimes shows quite a bit. I'm about like 7 or 8 years younger than you.
I can never keep track of it. I really can't. I know you are like around the age of my brothers and that you're older or you're younger than my oldest brother. So I'm going to say, I should know
that
this.
Helps no one.
We're really good friends. I should know this, but I'm going to say you're a 95.
Yes, nailed it.
Nailed it? Fuck yeah.
Nailed it.
Okay.
All right. So my era was around the tail end of the ruthless aggression era and like the wisps of the PG era that was starting to begin. So I'm talking like 2006 to 2008. It's that blip of time. I saw a lot of things that happened in 2007. I missed Eddie Guerrero and all that stuff that was going on at that right around 2005. And then I had like 2 strong years of just full on wrestling. The problem was I couldn't get any of my friends into it except for one who didn't go to my same school. So eventually when that friendship started to like naturally just grow apart as you do, as you grow up, I became a lapsed fan as you mentioned earlier, and didn't touch it at all for like, I think up until August of this past year.
Right. Yeah. So being a product of the Attitude Era, I predate that wrestling boom by a couple years. Now I think I said 94. I'm now thinking it's probably 96 because I think that's right around when WWF was still pre-Attitude Era, and Bret Hart's still there. We were talking about this earlier actually because Will was watching WrestleMania 12. That's my first wrestling event, and I believe that's 1996 because like right after that. Yeah. I think the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania is when Mankind did his first promo. So I'm right there.
Gotcha.
And
okay. Yeah.
And then wrestling just exploded in popularity. So I was kind of in a good position at school and stuff to be like, to hold the hand of the people and be like, welcome to wrestling. But it exploded. Like I'm talking when I was in this is elementary school for me, everyone watched wrestling. The girls watched wrestling. The boys watched wrestling. The teachers watched wrestling. Yeah. It was absolutely massive, right? And it became one of those weird things, too, where, I'm like, okay, 96, so I'm 8. And then it gets popular like a year and a half later, so I'm like 10. And then the Attitude Era hits, so I'm like 10, 11, 12 when they're doing the real raunchy stuff, and it is not age appropriate anymore.
Sure not, no.
Did you always know wrestling was a work?
I think so. I can't imagine a time where I didn't know something was going on. Like I always kind of knew, but the thing was when I was watching it, I just get so jacked up. I just get so jacked up after Raw or Smackdown or something. I'll be just running around the house like 13-year-old Will. just trying to do DDTs on people, swanton bombs. And this was at a time where I had a trampoline in my backyard.
Ooh, that's good.
And having a trampoline and being a wrestling fan and being 12, 13, 14, it's killer, man. So like that one friend, he would come over, we would literally run matches together, and you know, like as good as like 12-year-old, 13-year-old can do it, but I would do swanton bombs on him. He would do choke slams. He was like, he wanted to be more of a giant, and I always loved high flyers. So like I'm talking like Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy. I liked Edge, but he wasn't a high flyer. He was more of like that striker type. Like he just hit fast and hard.
Right,
know?
at that point, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had 3 little brothers, so
yeah.
I was just beating the living hell out of them. You know, like they are
Hell
5, 7, and 9 years younger than me. So, like, you know, I could just absolutely demolish them, and they would just bounce right back and love every second of it.
Hell yeah. You can run your own Royal Rumble and let them come back as different characters. And just,
absolutely.
Like, just be like Stone Cold in 97 and just rip through them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They were like Mick Foley in that one Rumble when he came out as Dude Love and Cactus Jack and Mankind. They were just like, you know, I eliminate one of them, and then one of them would go do a switch, and then come back as a different character. But speaking of the Royal Rumble, so this week was Rumble week. We're recording this a couple days post Rumble, and I just want to give everyone an idea of what the format is going to look like today and moving forward, because this is going to be a weekly podcast. So what we're going to do basically is it's a really loose review of the week of wrestling. We're going to touch on just to be fair, it's mostly going to be WWE focused. I want everyone to understand that this is a positivity podcast basically surrounding WWE. We will touch on AEW, we will touch on NXT, and maybe there'll be the odd Ring of Honor, New Japan stuff we touch on, but this is going to be mostly a WWE-centric podcast, mostly because we do not have... TNA, we're going to touch on that later. And so it's going to be mostly WWE because we don't have the time, frankly. I mean, even this week in preparation for this podcast, I realized how much time this is actually going to require in order to produce this, what I'm hoping is going to be about an hour to an hour and a half show every week. So, you know, we're gonna touch on these things, but I don't expect it to us to even review like the biggest pay-per-views or premium live events of some of these other promotions, including NXT. We don't have the time for it between recording this and editing it.
It has nothing to do with like our opinions about the product that those organizations put out. We do like pretty much all wrestling. We have our own opinions on what those products are. It really just comes down to timing. And I already have way too much shit going on to pay attention to everything. The fact that I've been able to keep up with Raw and SmackDown for the last 6 months is a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, so to kind of preface this for everyone, what happened is, like I said, every year I watch Rumble, I watch Mania, generally with a group of people who, I mean, before in the last 10 years, there was one gentleman I used to watch these events with who was super in. He was in 24/7. He was watching every single event. And, you know, I tried a couple times to get back into it, but I don't really want to throw too much shade here, but the product just wasn't really up to snuff. And it couldn't really hook me. It was just a little too PG, a little too family friendly. And mostly just like, you know, Vince's booking was getting ridiculous, and I just couldn't get into it. But last year, we found out in, I believe, February or January that the Smackdown was coming to our hometown, which is Calgary, Alberta. And so we all decided, a group of us who are all lapsed wrestling fans, a group of, I think, 6, that we were going to go. So we booked tickets, and this was the event was in August. So we booked way in advance. And then I did my typical watched WrestleMania and decided, you know what? I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch until we go in August. Just to see. I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it the old college try. And so I watched Mania, and then I've watched every weekly Raw and SmackDown since, and every PLE. And I got to say that the product it's back, baby. And you can kind of see it in the ratings. and in the culture.
Absolutely.
Like it is
It's hot.
back hard
it's a
right
hot
now.
zone.
And you can see, I mean, we're going to talk about it. And like I said, so what we want this to be is, or specifically what I want this to be, because I'm driving this bus because Will has way more artistic endeavors than I do. I want to do quick reviews. You know, we're going to probably do 10, 15 minutes on Raw and SmackDown every week, do a little bit more of extended time when there's a PLE. But you know, we're going to also after that do little feature segments. We're going to do top fives. We're going to cover some crazy moments. We're going to revisit wrestlers and managers and producers. Absolutely. And that's going to be the meat of the episode for the most part. But I just wanted to get you guys an understanding of what to expect. I'm also going to try to timestamp these on the descriptions for the podcast. So perhaps if you had missed SmackDown and you want to skip that segment, then you can go straight to the one that you've already seen, or perhaps you want to just pause before we start talking about Raw, because we're going to be recording these on Wednesdays. So we're going to do the SmackDown review, then the Raw review with the PLE in the middle. On weeks with the PLEs, then we'll touch on our featured segments, and then I got a little surprise for Will at the end of the show.
Oh,
that he's gonna
show me his penis.
Yeah, we are on video chat right now. I am going to take out my penis, and you'll hear Will's reaction. You'll know when it happens. Believe me, you're gonna know when it happens.
I make a unique sound.
Yeah, it's kind of somewhere between the Homer scream. The Peter when he stubs his leg when he hits his leg. It's somewhere in between there. You're gonna know when it happens. But this week, what I wanted to do with the Royal Rumble happening is we're not going to have the featured theme of the week or the featured segment. But I do want to spend a little bit more time on all of these events just to give a quick one-sentence summation or whatever to discuss our current feelings on the roster as we discuss these matches. Just so you guys have a sense of where we're sitting with these characters as we move forward. We're not going to do that every week. Certainly not as in-depth as I plan on today, but I just want to just touch on everyone we talk about just a little bit today so that you guys can get a sense of what kind of wrestling fans we are. And I think the Rumble really gives us a good opportunity for that.
Absolutely. And before we get started, this is a hell of a week to hop in on a podcast, episode 1. There's so much to talk about here.
I mean, like,
it's a spicy week.
When I did the initial notes for this, because Will and I have been planning this for a little bit, when I was doing the initial show outline, what my vision for the show was, top of the show, like, we're going a lot longer here than I plan on in the future, but news is the first thing I want to talk about every week. And there's been quite a bit of news this week that I really don't want to drag out, but like, it's been a spicy week for WWE news, aside from all of the events, which included the Royal Rumble, probably the second biggest PLE just event in general of the year. So so that's going to be interesting.
It's been such a week that we even watched like the press conference after the Royal Rumble just to see what the comments were about the current events of the WWE. Like, that's the kind of week. It's been.
I do typically watch the press conferences after the PLEs, but usually it's more like I leave the event on. I'm walking around, I'm cleaning up the mess I made during it, and I'm paying half attention, and like, oh, cool, Gunther's on, I know what he's going to say, yada, 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 I'm Austrian, we get it, I'm better than everyone, blah, blah, blah. But this one was kind of important, as we will touch on very quickly here. I mean, we might as well just break it. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into the news?
I'm on your bus. Show me where we want to go.
All right, beep beep toot toot. I want to kind of take this news a little bit from least important to most important, because we all know what most important is right now. It's a little. It extends beyond the realm of the wrestling fan. Seth Rollins is out of the New World Order. And I'm not talking about the NWO. I am talking about Captain America New World Order. It was announced that he has been cut from the movie, which sucks.
Oh, no.
Yep, he was supposed to be a member of the Serpent Society, and some people are kind of theorizing that. I mean, I don't know how familiar. Just so everyone listening knows, Will and I are a fairly large comic book fans. I'd say me a little bit more than Will. And so the Serpent Society has a member named Sabra, or Sabra, I mean, I've always read it as Sabra, who is kind of like the Israeli Captain America. So there's some thoughts that maybe they're cutting that aspect out of it to avoid having to deal with that time bomb, which is kind of fucked for, you know, the whole Sam Wilson Captain America era, because the show that came out, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, they had to cut a bunch of stuff that had to do with basically like a terrorist group releasing a virus. But it was happening right around COVID, so they cut that whole thing out too. So he seems a little bit cursed with his storylines right now. They're kind of getting neutered by world events.
Yeah, poor Disney, but also fuck Disney. I feel bad for Seth Rollins. I think I do want to see him in movies. I think he's actually a pretty interesting character as a person to watch. But I'm out of the MCU. Like, fuck it. Like,
I pretty much am too at this point. Like, and like I still tried to stay past Endgame. I kept trying, and I was keeping up on everything. And I think even the first thing I didn't watch might have even just been Marvels. I don't know if I have anything before Marvels that I didn't watch. I'm trying to think what came before that, but I just a series of underwhelming outings, and just like there's just other things I'm interested in more now. I'm still gonna watch stuff like that interests me. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a time commitment. It's one of those things where when you start watching it again and you like actually realize the amount of time you're sinking into watching this, and like watching it on I typically watch it after it airs, which is nice because you can fast forward through the commercials. But even in this week when we were doing our first run of reviews, there were matches where I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about this. Like, this is normally the match I'd like skip 30 seconds, skip 30 seconds, skip 30 seconds. And I can't anymore. I actually have to watch this match that I do not care for.
Pay attention.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but whatever. It is what it is. So like, I guess, I mean, touching on streaming services and stuff like that, big news this week that Raw is moving to Netflix, which is a very interesting move for Netflix. I'll leave people and media criticism to the professionals who want to discuss the implications of having this traditionally just only streaming service. He has a kind of a checkered past with live events moving into the space. But kind of the bigger news for us is because we're in Canada, it sounds like select countries to start and then more as deals expire are going to be getting the WWE network on Netflix. Hopefully it's not an additional charge. Hopefully this is going to be something included with the package, in which case I will renew my Netflix, which I have canceled since they did the whole limiting IP nonsense about a year ago. I don't know when that happened for our US listeners, but you know, you guys are experiencing it now, but Canada actually had it trialed a little bit earlier than the US, and that's when I canceled and walked away. But, I mean, I currently have the WWE Network in Canada, which is hosted by Sportsnet, which is the, you know, I guess you could say the ESPN of Canada to some extent, or a ESPN. And what I noted was the last time I had WWE Network, which was probably 7-8 years ago, it was hosted on WWE.com. It was hosted through the website, and there was a lot more content. And the Sportsnet one is just completely neutered.
Yeah, the Sportsnet one. I'll speak to this a little bit because I spent a lot of time on the Sportsnet one in the past week. So when Tyler bought the WWE Network for research purposes, he sent me the how-to to get in. I think for the next 3 or 4 days, I watched exclusively wrestling, and I'm talking like 30 to 35 hours of PLEs. Old matches, just burning through content there. Yeah. And the Sportsnet app in general is disorganized. It's not user friendly, and there's a lot of weird gaps in content in terms of like the PLEs that are available. Like, for example, like WrestleMania 20 and WrestleMania 21 are missing from the package. And then you would find like Extreme Rules only goes back to like 2016 or something like that, when I think there was Extreme Rules even further back in the day. But
yeah, I was really shocked by it.
yeah, it sucked. But the thing I had to remember is that a lot of these events that are PLEs now, and this is coming from like a lapsed fan that was like, when I last watched this, I was a child. A lot of the events and matches I've wanted to watch were actually, when I thought they were PLEs, they were actually just matches in a different PLE. So for example, I texted you about it. I wanted to watch the infamous Undertaker Mankind Hell in the Cell match.
Right, which was
there is no Hell in a Cell back then.
King of the Ring?
It was King of the Ring. It was King of the Ring 1998. So I had to do a little bit of research. So I mean, if you're a fan of wrestling and you want to watch everything, there's certainly not everything there, but I think take that knowledge with you just to remember. I mean, I'm talking to wrestling fans. They're probably yelling at me right now, going like, "Yeah, you fucking idiot! Of course, King of the Ring did Hell in the Cell." I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's another thing to really point out here is like I said, we are. I can't really speak to Will, but I was hardcore for about 10 years of my life, and then nothing but Mania and Rumble for years and years and years. So there's going to be certain select spots where I am a complete master and know everything, and then we're going to talk about stuff eventually that like happened in 2013, and I'm going to have no fucking clue what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, hopefully Netflix kind of brings that traditional WWE package back in. I have since, because like I said, like Will said, I signed up for the network because we are going to be reviewing old pay-per-views and we're going to be reviewing old wrestlers. So I wanted that database, and then quickly realized it's not the same WWE network I had previously. And like, you know, I can't express to you, Will, how many things were on the WWE network when I had it last. Like I'm talking like
I think
Mid-South Wrestling and old like World WC was WCCW or no, World Class Championship Wrestling. They had a lot in the library. Right. They had Stampede stuff.
Wow.
And
now, and I remember you showed me the app back then. And I think it was only maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6. At least when in the time frame of us being friends. I remember you showing me the app, and I think it was organized in such a way that could you watch matches, like just individual matches as well, instead of just going through the entire pay-per-view?
I can't remember if it was time-stamped or not, but I think it was. Like I think if you clicked on it, you like clicked on the pay-per-view or whatever, the event, then underneath would be like the boxes for each particular match that you could fast forward to directly. That's amazing. And from what I've done some brief reading on this. I mean, we're stuck on this package at least for the next month. I have read that, you know, if we VPN to a couple select countries where it is still run directly through WWE, all that stuff is still there. So I think that's probably what we'll examine going forward is maybe signing up. And I heard Poland is good for the conversion. I heard it's cheap if we sign up in Poland. And the prices seem pretty consistent. That it's $10 US, and then the currency gets translated at that point. So I'm going to try to maybe VPN it. You know, I found a couple websites that are a little sketchy. I'm going to investigate them a little bit more and see what they have to offer. Like, you know, I think we're planning on doing this for the long run. So if we are still doing this in a year, 2, 5, we will go deep. We will be covering like the odd Mid-South event or World Class Championship, you know, or Stampede. But we're still quite a ways away from that, I think.
I would love to dive into some Stampede wrestling. I found a YouTube channel. I sent you this a couple weeks ago. I sent you a YouTube channel that has like 80 episodes of Stampede wrestling. And obviously from being from Calgary, there's just like little like Calgarian celebrities that only we would know about that kind of like pop up.
It's
here
true,
and there.
yeah.
And it's amazing. It is.
Oh my God! It's Ed Whalen.
It's a treat for the sense.
Ed Whalen is announcing.
And he is pissed.
That's good stuff. All right, well, let's just cover a couple more of these the news pieces. So, basically, you know what? Some of these other things are gonna roll into some of the stuff we're gonna talk about with our reviews. So I'm just gonna say,
Sure.
We're gonna do 5 minutes here on Vince. So,
Okay.
for those of you living under a rock, not the rock, but a rock, Vince McMahon is being sued. And a big Cliff Notes version of this is a few years ago, they were talking about how there were some payments being made by Vince to people with the corporate account to keep them quiet, to pay hush money for some women that he may or may have not sexually assaulted or had some improprieties. And that's what got him in trouble the first time and essentially kicked him out of the WWE board. He did like kind of a coup d'etat, got back in. Then they sold to TKO last year, like right before or the day of, or I think the day before WrestleMania. So then he came back onto the board and has since had to resign because one of the main women that he was allegedly paying off was not receiving her full payments for the NDA, which, come on, Vince.
Yeah.
Pay the woman. Because the things that have come out about their relationship are fucking wild.
It's horrifying. It is horrifying. I don't even want to like mention anything that goes on in these documents, and I don't know if you've read them at all. I've read like a few like pages here and there just to kind of get the gist of it, and I had to stop, man. Like it was I think for me reading that and knowing Vince the way that I know Vince, and I don't know Vince personally. I'm like, obviously.
We just want to make that clear. Will does not know Vince McMahon.
Yeah. I do not know Vince McMahon. But knowing Vince, the media conglomerate, I don't know. I don't think it's too far from fiction. I don't know. I don't know.
It's really interesting because, like, you know, like, again, everyone, our readers, our listeners, I don't want to, like, go in too deep on specifics here, both because we've gone very long for this segment, and also because, like, I don't think we can do it proper justice. But,
no.
You know, I think Vince, in his older age, as he amassed power and kept getting away with other minor things, may have used this opportunity to get away with larger things. And I know a lot of people with alternative lifestyles who engage in very bizarre, or I'm not going to say bizarre, but like non-normal, non-typical relationships, you know? I got poly friends, I got ace friends, I got friends from all the spectrum of the rainbow here. And so I don't want to shame anything that was said in the documents if it was consensual.
He's got piss friends.
I've got piss friends. I got friends who love piss. But, you know, all of that is fine. Everything that has been shown is fine if it's in a consensual relationship. But when you have someone who is your subordinate in a business world, these things cannot happen, period. So even if Vince was under the assumption that all of this was consensual or wanted to some extent, it still is inexcusable in a professional setting. And that's the thing I kind of want to make clear, is the things that are said, the things that happened aren't necessarily, I mean, they obviously read bad, but people are into weird things, and that's fine. But you can't do that when you're paying the woman out of the company pockets and she has all the symptoms of being someone who is in a bad place in her life, and you can read it as being exploited. And that is the assumption I'm making going forward, is that she was being exploited.
Right.
But, you know, maybe she is not power hungry. Maybe she is someone who's exploiting the situation for her own gain. But I also think she has every right to do that, considering that she was on the payroll. You know, Vince was her boss. There is both a power difference there and an age difference and a bunch of other differences. So I will leave it to our listeners to go in and read the specifics.
It's all about the game and how you play it.
Wow. Foreshadowing right there, Will. So the important things to note are Vince has stepped down from the board. He's off the TKO board, which is the company that owns both WWE and UFC.
I want to hop in real quick here. Can we just imagine what this board meeting was like? Because right before these allegations came out, The Rock joined the TKO board, right?
Like 12 hours before.
Hours. We're talking hours. And I'm just imagining, like, the first thought that came to my head is the board meeting from the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, where they bring Norman Osborn in. You got Triple H at the other end of the table, and he goes, "You're out, Vince." It's like, nah.
See, I was kind of picturing it like, you watch The Boys, right?
No.
Oh, you haven't watched The Boys?
I watched the first season. Look, tar and feather me on Twitter. Take me to Twitter. I don't care. I'm not a big fan of The Boys.
Okay.
Said it.
Eat
Sorry.
shit. You're wrong. Stop watching any Marvel thing ever and then just watch The Boys. But I pictured it as like a meeting of the seven. I can't remember if there was any of those in the first season. I'm sure there were. But just like, a giant boardroom with all of these characters. You got The Rock. You got Dana White. You got Vince. Yeah. You got Ari Emanuel. It's just like all these larger than life figures.
What is going on?
I mean, like you guys have all seen. I assume you all have seen the pictures of Vince lately, like what he looks like fucking Snidely Whiplash with the weird ass mustache and the jet black dyed everything, and just him trying to defend himself. And then The Rock in my head is in character. He is not Dwayne Johnson. He is just fully The Rock. And for some reason, he's just delivering a promo in front of everyone, a la The Rock. He's got a microphone for some reason.
Yeah.
And they're booting Vince out.
Did The Rock ask you to speak?
But that's the thing, is like,
shut up, sit down, shut up.
There's been a lot of red flags about Vince over the years, and there's a lot of red flags about WWE in general, to be fair. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I speak for Will here and say that Will and I are both politically very left-wing, both socially, fiscally, all the above.
I'm North Wing.
Beautiful.
Baby.
Nailed it. And, with all the stuff with Saudi Arabia, who I also have to contend with in my own personal life as being a Newcastle United fan who was purchased by Saudi Arabia. I gotta watch WWE. I'm a Newcastle fan. The Saudis are just invading my recreational time. And it's also like, I don't want to say it's worked, but it's made me, no lie, not exaggerating, spend hours reading about the history of Saudi Arabia. Learning a whole bunch about their, the general, as much as you can fit into a 3-hour session of reading about Saudi Arabia's history. Understanding that they were like a state that was very closely tied to the religion, but they are trying to break away from that now. And it does seem from my reading that is legitimate. There's no more, like, from what I can read, no more like beheadings in the public square of the infidels. But, it's only been a change in the last 5 years. Maybe being generous, the last 10, where the real changes have come forward, where the political powers, or it's not political, it's the king and his family have started to distance themselves from the religious sect in Saudi Arabia and try to make a more progressive place. So, to be fair, there's all of those things to consider. However, it also is still very fresh. And I don't want to start talking about Jamal Khashoggi on a fucking wrestling podcast. So
you're off the rails here. You're off the rails.
I'm a little off the rails.
Bring it back to WWE.
Bring it back to WWE. It's not a fun place to. It's not a fun company to cheer for. They have a horrible history of neglecting their wrestlers, not giving them the proper rights, signing them to contracts as contractors, not giving them the proper retirement that they deserve for the work that they've put in and the sacrifices they've made. So we're not going to talk about that a lot here unless it comes up in the news segment, but we do understand walking into this that WWE is probably a horrible corporation that we should not be cheering for. But most of the
historically
recreational
speaking, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of history
historically
in Vince.
speaking. Absolutely, but I would argue to say that I think that the modern understanding of like workers' rights in around the world has only existed maybe in the last 5 years. You know,
It's definitely one of those
exploitive
things that it feels like it's an older thing with us because we have the privilege of living in Canada, where it's been
Absolutely.
on the tip of the tongues, and there's been movements made over the last 100 years where that is
Absolutely.
the exception and not the rule worldwide.
Absolutely. And in the case of WWE, this is just how business was ran in from the 80s, 90s, 2000s. These like Vince was ruthless. He was a ruthless businessman. He ate an entire industry, swallowed it
Yeah,
whole, more or less.
exactly. And then, but kept all of
and
the rights of the workers the same. He treated them all like they were
Exactly.
still in territories, even though he was making, millions and millions of dollars off of them.
Exactly. So I think the interesting thing that's going to be playing out in the next few months is after these allegations and whether or not they come to light as true or partially true, whatever happens. I think what we're going to see is a shift in culture internally for WWE, and I think we're seeing that already. For example, when we watched Cody Rhodes in that press conference after Royal Rumble, he's incredibly media trained, and he was popped the question about the Vince McMahon allegations. I think the question that he was asked had the term "quote unquote" dark cloud that hovered over Royal Rumble as people went into it. And I can't remember Cody's exact response, but he responded quite eloquently, succinctly. He addressed it, but diverted. And we're going to see more of that as details kind of come forward about this event. And if things from the past keep coming up, like maybe something involved with Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and these don't even have to be explicitly sexual by nature, maybe they're just like shitty boss things that they did 10 years ago. They're still going to come up, and they're going to have to be addressed in a way. And I think we're going to see a much more almost sort of liberal, like left-leaning approach to these things while still trying to make a product that's not as toned down as the PG era. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling?
No, I see what you're saying. I think and the nature of the company is different than it was before, right? It's a publicly traded company now. We officially have no more McMahons left in the company. You have Triple H to some extent, and there's ownership held by like Stephanie and I believe Shane as well. I think they still have some shares. And I know Vince does too, but like on the operating day to day, I don't think anyone's really involved other than Triple H. So
Of course.
I think that mostly, you're going to just get more corporate log lines. You can't just kind of put your foot down and say we're going to do everything the way we want to do it, because you're under a larger scrutiny when you have to deal with things as a publicly traded company, right? And now the magnifying glass is on them. And like you were saying, Cody is being positioned as the face of the company, I think, moving forward. I do think he's going to win at WrestleMania and beat Roman, and I think Roman's going to go away for an extended period of time and take a crack at Hollywood and follow in the steps of The Rock. So
Sure.
they are positioning him that way. And, with AEW and even the All-In show before AEW, he's always... Not always, but he's carried himself as a businessman. He knows how to address these questions. He did a lot better job answering those questions than Triple H did.
A lot better job. I was actually blown away by how he answered those questions.
Yeah, he did an excellent job addressing them, and where he kind of subtly shifted focus away from the nature of the question, where Triple H directly
Triple H just
He just took the wheel and took a left hand. Yeah, exactly. He took a sledgehammer and hit someone awkwardly by holding the sledgehammer with one hand. The way everyone uses a sledgehammer, holding it on the two ends of the sledgehammer. Yeah, so
I do I do appreciate the way that he answered the question in a way, because even though I think his answer was a bullshit answer, and even when we were sitting there, everybody there that was watching, we were like, "That's bullshit. That's a bullshit answer. What you're giving." He started it by going, "You know what I'm going to do here," and I don't know, that kind of honesty.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it.
Like, I'd rather have him say, I can't really answer this than just not answering it, and everyone knows he's not answering it, and he's not acknowledging that he's not answering it, right? So,
yeah,
we'll see how that all plays out, though. Again, it's a really weird time to be starting a podcast when you have this much
it's a great
wild
time. It's
shit.
a great time. It's like,
so let's
we're
transition.
Seeing a birth of something develop. We're seeing the birth of something here, and even though it's kind of happening in the ashes of a legacy that has held WWE, like that was over the whole wrestling landscape for 40 fucking years. That is gone. So we're starting new again. So it's like, we're here, ground zero, baby. Let's go.
It's true.
Let's do it.
It's not. You're not wrong, Will. You're not wrong. It is the dawn of a new day, but it's not about New Day. They're kind of old. No one really pops for them. We'll talk about that later. I
have 7 piles of pancakes here. What am I going to do?
I got Bootios. I bought all the Bootios. I thought I was going to sell them during COVID. I had like this Bootio mask deal going on. No one bid on it, and they're all expiring. Just to tie into one of your other podcasts, Steve keeps coming over. He's stealing all the Bootios. He's feeding them to the rats. It's becoming a whole thing. I don't love what's happening, but at least they're going to a good home, and that is the rats' bellies. So let's talk about some fucking wrestling. Let's do it.
Let's do some wrestling.
So we're going to cover Smackdown from last Friday, January 26th, in Miami, Florida. It's the go-home show before Rumble. Straight up, off the bat, just want to pour one out for my boy. We loved you. Well, we didn't. You were really good at your job. Well, you really weren't. But you seem like a good guy. R.I.P. Kevin Patrick. They killed you. See you later.
Are you talking about Vince again?
Poor Kevin Patrick. What were your feelings on Kevin Patrick? I personally did not care for him. I am a soccer fan. He calls a fantastic soccer match, but he just didn't really grab me in wrestling with that endless, breathless, everything. Always running out of breath. Not gonna try to do an Irish accent because it would be bad.
Yeah. Honestly, my feelings on this, I had no feelings. I was like, okay. I don't know. I don't have that much love for the current roster of commentators in WWE. And I know Michael Cole has been there for forever. And we'll get to Michael Cole in a bit when we talk about Raw. But seeing Kevin Patrick leave, I was like, okay, fine. Let's do some experimenting here. Let's see if there's other people that can do this.
I mean, they gave him a good run, and they've talked about, it's been talked about in the dirt sheets and online about how they were pressuring him to change and talking to him, and it sounded like he had the knowledge that if it didn't start going better, he was gone. And this has been talked about for quite a while now. And it didn't go any better. I didn't hate him on the mic, for sure. I thought Graves would. I'm kind of the opposite of you. I really like most of the commentators right now. I think Corey Graves is a great heel commentator, and I think Wade Barrett is good. I think has some problems that in a different way that is kind of shared with KP and some of his idioms that he uses and the analysis he gives. But, he is an ex-wrestler. He knows what he's talking about. And I think he really works well with Cole, which unfortunately we're not going to get anymore. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But I don't really hate anyone except for KP. And I do think that was kind of intensified by the online hate. Everyone was pointing out his flaws. And I think a lot of people were like, hey, yeah, he does do that. Fuck that guy. But I think the general consensus too is also that he seems like a really wonderful person. Like no one was really wishing ill upon him. They just didn't want him to do this job anymore. And I think that's fair because he wasn't very good at it.
We don't hate you. We just don't want you working anymore.
We just want you to go away. So yeah, KP's gone. And so we kick off SmackDown and we got Eladio Carrios. So Will and I used to work at a record store called HMV. And how long did you work there? 3 years, 4 years?
I worked there 4 years, maybe 3.5.
And I worked there for a couple years before you, so probably about 6. And during that glorious time in my late 20s and early 30s, I was still really in the know about pop music. You know, I fell out a little bit in my early mid 20s, and then I got the job at HMV, and I was tapped in, baby. I knew the top 40. I knew everything that was happening with the kids because we were subjected to it every day, slinging these CDs. And now I don't know anything about the kids. I know Taylor Swift is still cool. I know people love Bad Bunny.
Cooler than ever.
But I kind of only really know about that through wrestling.
Yep.
But I know Eladio Carrios had that RKO song because they were pushing that really hard. And so he introduced the show. And it's kind of a muted performance, but whatever. You got to sit out there and hang out with Randy. You know, Randy cut an okay promo. He did give spoilers for the Rumble. I don't know if you caught that. Did you catch that?
No, I did not catch that.
He said there's only one number that matters, and that's number 15. And he may have been referring to the fact that he was the 15-time champ. But Cody came out at 15 in the Rumble.
Cody came out at 15.
I don't know if that was purposeful foreshadowing, but, it was an okay promo. Whatever, it's Randy. I don't think Randy really gives great great face promos as well as he does with heel promos. But, everyone wanted to see him back, and he's back, and everyone's happy. Yeah. What are your feelings about Randy Orton right now?
I like you said, like him as a face is interesting, and I do like Randy. I think Randy's amazing, like in ring, like the dude's incredible. But I feel like we need a heel turn. Like
I think it's inevitable, because I think he does work better as a heel. But when you're gone for that long, people want to see you. So when you come back, you kind of deliver the goods. You make him a good guy for a little bit at least.
Yeah, you know what's funny about Randy is that he's only 2 years older than LA Knight. And I think maybe a year older than AJ Styles, maybe a little bit more. Like, he's only a couple years older than a lot of these guys who are just coming up, and he's treated as such a legend, But then again, he's been in this company for 20 odd years, so the experience.
He got the call up young, right? Like I think he was 20
young.
Or something when he got called up. So he's been around for 2 decades now. So it kind of feels like he is the old timer a lot more than he is because he's been up for so long, right? Like, LA Knight or Eli Drake, he spent a lot of time on the indies and built himself up in those places. And so he still feels a little bit more fresh in WWE. And same with AJ to some extent. I think AJ only came into WWE in 2016. And I mean, you see it with the Rumble too, right? Like WWE fans are not necessarily wrestling fans. You get different pops for people who have been in WWE and are returning because there's a lot of that group that do not watch anything but WWE.
Yeah.
And it's reflected in the numbers, right? But yeah, so Randy came out, cut a promo. AJ came out, he's sad. They're trying to push him heel right now. I personally we'll talk about AJ for a second here. I don't really have as much love for AJ Styles as other wrestling fans because I was not a TNA watcher. I always knew he was there, and I did watch a little bit of TNA, but just something about him in general is not really, doesn't really click with me. I mean, he's a great in-ring performer, no doubt, but it just doesn't really resonate with me. I mean, I don't know why necessarily. Maybe because I'm not white trash enough. Is that a thing? Is he like the white trash king? Like, I'm a different kind of white trash.
Yeah,
I'm not southern white trash.
You're garbage.
I'm a garbage human. I'm Canadian garbage human.
When it comes to AJ, I think I'm with you. If I'm with you when it comes to face AJ, the heel turn AJ that they're pushing right now, I don't think it's amazing, but I definitely think it makes him more interesting than the AJ that I've seen in the past, where he's just sad and he's looking for his pop, really.
Yeah, I remember when we went to Smackdown, I looked at the card beforehand and I saw AJ versus Omos. Omos? AJ versus Omos. And I went, okay, there's my break. There's my pee break right there. Right in the middle of the card.
Yeah.
And go pee, grab a beer. I do not give a shit about this. And like the whole thing
Absolutely.
with like, what was their stable called? Did they even have a name of the stable? Am I blanking on this?
Oh,
with him
the
and the
OC,
Good Brothers?
the OC.
The OC, thank you. God, I could not care less.
Right.
And I like the Good Brothers, and I don't know how familiar you are with their pedigree, but like they have a deep pedigree as a tag team in Japan and in AEW and in TNA, but they've never really, in the time that I've watched, the moments I've watched the WWE, I've never really been that pushed, so I don't really have much feeling for them. I like their work in the ring, but for the most part, when they put them on TV, it's mostly just to get smashed, to put someone else over. And Mi Chin is fine, but you know she's just another face in the girls division. You know, I think maybe the lack of a mid card belt for the women kind of hurts people like her. Where there's really like, you know, she's not going to beat Rhea, she's not going to be Bianca or Charlotte or Becky. So there's like, what do you do with her? You can put a tag team belt on her, which we're going to talk about later. But there's really nowhere for her to go other than just to be a stepping stone for someone they're trying to build up. And with the size of the women's division now, I think they really need like a mid-card title, you know, an Intercontinental or a U.S. title to push some of those people.
Start with one, and then you can trade the champion over to SmackDown or Raw, depending on where the storyline's going, where people are starting to tune in, and then just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. That can't just be like I don't think you need two mid cards, but you know, one would be helpful, and then just make it brand agnostic. They can go to both brands, right? So AJ comes out. He's sad. He's a sad man. He's an angry man.
Yep.
He says some sad shit.
I like that he's wearing like a Palpatine hood. You know.
Yeah.
When he comes out now.
Do it. But yeah, LA comes out. He brings the fucking fire. Huge pop. He's so over.
Let's talk about the timing the production had, and they must have been waiting for their cue twice. Because AJ was cutting his promo. He's bickering with Randy, and I went and watched the promo, this particular segment again, and right when AJ's on the floor walking to the ring, he says LA Knight. He says LA Knight's name. And he says it in a way with like a pause right before it, as if he's queuing up production for what's going to happen next. But then it's missed. And then he has to continue on kind of ad-libbing the rest of the promo, which I think he does a pretty good job. That's the feeling that I get. Maybe I'm reading too much into it and this was planned. But I had a feeling that first time he says LA Knight on the floor, they didn't time it properly. And then he had to kind of like work it all the way into the ring. And then he says LA Knight again, and production times LA Knight with the LA Knight like
perfection
to a T. It is incredible. The effect of the pop that they were able to pull from that was amazing. So bravo to production for timing that. Great stuff. But yeah, LA Knight comes out and he starts cooking. I was saying this to you.
Bringing the fucking fire. Just bringing the fire. He's such a good promo.
I think right at the beginning, he was just starting to feel it a little bit. And he even threw out a dummy just to see who would catch it. And you could hear a small pop, like a small pop in the background for people who like watched NWA or people who just like dove into old LA Knight promos. He threw in a little dummy in there and he paused and he listened for it. And he's like, okay, maybe we can work that dummy in somewhere else. And then as soon as he gets into the ring and starts just laying into Randy and AJ, hot fire all the way through. I'm like, let him cook.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Sometimes he'll get out there and he'll stumble a little bit and miss a few things, but he was just on point. And when he was like, what did he say? He was like, I'm going to hit Solo so hard he'll start dancing like his dad. And started doing the Rikishi dance. Like, I love shit like that. It was so good. And I love how he just came in, spit hot fire, and then just bailed. And just started walking up the ramp.
Left.
And then, AJ Pele kicks Randy. He owes him he's got a receipt for him, yada, 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 building up to the Rumble. Yeah. It's the go-home show. I get it. So it's a pretty solid opening segment. We got to see all four of them. We got to see the three of them who were going to challenge Roman. They're still, brewing those divisions. Because, let's be real here. We know what's happening in Rumble. We know Roman's not going to lose at Rumble. It's just so you got to make it interesting for the fans. So basically the real thing we're going to see here is the division of, these three people and how that's going to play into Roman winning, right? So pretty rote stuff, pretty standard, whatever. I enjoyed it. And then we move on to Carlito and Santos, which is something they've been kind of cooking up lately, ever since Ray got out. And, it's been lovely to see Carlito back. I'm a big Carlito fan from back in the day. Always thought he was underutilized. He looks great for his age.
He looks amazing. That's another thing that I want to touch on is every time there's been like a return, not every time, I'd say like maybe 3 out of 5 times or something like that. When somebody returns, they come back and they look like they've been to the Triple H school of hitting gas, baby. Like,
when AJ came back.
Styles,
Randy.
AJ Styles is just... Ooh, huge. Randy's huge. And then even Carlito as well, when he came back. I remember the first time seeing him, I was like, fuck, he's big now. He's a big guy. Yeah. He's formidable.
And I think part of it that helped that too is personally, I haven't seen Carlito wrestle since he left WWE in 10 years ago, probably more time for me. And at that point, he was more of like a cruiserweight almost, he was a smaller guy. And now he's just absolutely jacked and his face looks old, so he looks meaner and angrier. But yeah, so, they've been brewing this Carlito Santos thing. It's not the most interesting storyline to me. We're ramping up to LWO versus the fake LWO, or what was the name they gave them? Legado?
I don't know.
Legendado del Fuego or something? That's racist, kind of, but, it's something like that. The Legends of Fire.
Yeah.
And so, Carlito gets a hot start, give him his spot, give him his shine. Santos kind of makes the comeback, rips off Carlito's t-shirt, which was kind of weird to me that, if you're going to do the t-shirt spot, Carlito usually comes in a t-shirt, to be fair, but if you're going to do the t-shirt rip spot, shouldn't he be wearing like an LWO shirt and not just like a generic Carlito shirt?
It's true. It's true.
It just feels like it would get more heat.
Storytelling. Yeah. I know what you mean.
It was a bit choppy, but it got smoother.
As a whole, I like the match. I mean, Carlito can just go, when
and so can Santos. And Santos can.
So can Santos.
He's so good at adapting to his opponent. You can put him in the ring with Rey Mysterio and have a cruiserweight style match, or you can kind of put him in with Carlito, and he can really work with like a bigger guy who's working slower. He's very good at adapting his style. And he looks the part for both matches as well. Yep.
I think his heel turn has been okay. It's definitely made him more interesting than who he was before. But the reason for him turning heel, it just kind of like slips through the fingers a little bit. But if it gets him in the ring with Carlito, then so be it. Did you catch the NXT match that Carlito, it was like LWO with Carlito, with some of the other fake LWO, and they did a spot where Carlito and another guy, LWO, they hold down a rope, and the third guy, I can't remember their names. I'm sorry, everybody.
It's probably Angel and Umberto.
Angel and Umberto. Don't know which one. I think Angel.
I don't know which one either, and I don't know the name of the other LWO members. They've just been really hammering Angel and Umberto lately to make us know who they are, and they're not really saying the names. They're just saying like the other LWO guys.
Yeah. Well, the LWO guys, they do a Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro. They do a spot where they on NXT where they hop on the rope, and Carlito and one of the other LWO
Oh,
members,
the launch.
like slingshot. Yeah, the launch into the sky.
That was a great
And
spot. I only saw that on social media, but yeah, that was great. He got air.
I watched that whole match. Yeah, he got serious air. I watched that whole match, and that whole match was fantastic.
And I read something where they were talking to the guy who got slingshotted. I don't remember which one it is, but he was saying in prep, he was like, you got to move them back. And they were like, there's no way you're going to clear this. And I think they put like a crash mat down or something, and they showed how far he would go. And they were like, holy fuck, okay, you can make that jump. All right, we'll back him up for the spot on TV. Because he goes flying, and he nails it. He goes flying. Absolutely nails it.
I was expecting a spot like that in this match once the other LWO members showed up, but I don't know. It didn't happen. But I think
they keep that for a PLE. We're going to see that again sure.
For sure. And I like this first match. It was a good starter. Got us going.
Yeah, two good workers in the ring. A pretty basic match. Carlito gets over a little bit to not make him look completely weak, and then Santos comes in and gets the build up. We got a little bit of distraction going on with Angel and Humberto. We got a brawl breaking out between LWO and FLWO. And then they bring back Elektra Lopez, who I'm not familiar with. It's outside of my purview, but apparently was part of a stable NXT with Santos to, be the girl, to be the woman in the fake LWO to kind of match with LWO. So now we're even here with the team members, and we're going to obviously continue this for some time. I don't love it, and not to be like xenophobic, but like when they start talking in Spanish to each other, I got nothing, man. I don't know what the hell's going on, and that's fine.
It's like, speak English, damn it.
Kind of,
the language of the country that you're in.
If it was two French groups, I'd at least be able to pick up because I know a little bit of French. I know, enough to get by that I'd be able to understand what they were saying for the most part. And, I do know some Spanish, but it's just one of those things where I'm not too invested. But the matches are great. They're all quality competitors. They can mix it up with the heavy hitters in Santos and Carlito, and then you got the undercard guys who can high fly and keep the attraction. I've seen a lot of matches with the LW over the last 6 months. With Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of matches with them where the crowd is silent and they get them into it because they know how to work a crowd. They know how to escalate a match and know where to pick their spots, right? But it was, I'm going to give this match 2 lazy rivers. It was just a nice little calm, we're just getting to the theme park. We're getting in there. Floating down the river. I'm like, oh, this is a little exciting. Ooh, there's a little bend in this. Oh, we're catching some speed. So kind of getting me into the spirit for Smackdown.
Yeah. For me, let's call it 4 rusted hard drives.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Perfect.
Okay.
So then we get the first of many of we got Nick Aldis and Baby Rock segment number 1. Where they're going to do that traditional thing with the Royal Rumble where people are going to come pick their numbers. But, they're not going to show them on this. But we have, as soon as you see it, this is going to be an ongoing thing throughout the night.
Yeah.
And you got Baby Rock, who's the new GM of NXT as of last week or something. Bobby Rock comes in. I don't even really know her. Eva? Aisha?
Nick Aldis.
Nick Aldis. Oh, sorry. Yes, Nick Aldis.
Sorry. Yeah, Nick Aldis is the GM. Sorry, Baby Rock. I'm getting confused. Yeah. His nephew, or is it his daughter that's in there?
That's his daughter. Yeah.
Wow.
That's Baby Rock.
Yeah, and she just kind of she was standing there with a notepad, looking angry. I was like, good job.
Yeah, she's the new GM of NXT that they just promoted. I know she was wrestling for a bit, but I never really liked her in-ring work from what I saw. But, she has the attitude for it, and she can speak on the mic. So they're bringing her in for some arbitrary reason, I guess, just to establish that that's what she is now. And we got Bobby.
The reason is The Rock is on TKO. Is on the TKO board.
It was a bit suspicious.
Do what The Rock says.
The timing was a bit suspicious, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna say nepotism that she got into the company, but not nepotism that she's been promoted to GM. Let's say that. That's my stance.
All right. All right.
So yeah, Bobby Lashley comes in, pulls a Rumble number, gets into a little talking with Santos. I'm not even sure if that's like laying seeds, or I think it's just more connective tissue to kind of bring the two segments together.
No.
Not really that important. We'll talk more about Baby Rock and all this in a bit. And so we get the Bayley video package on her journey the last few years, specifically post her injury. And watching this in the moment, I was like, oh, my personal thought is that Damage Control has gone on far too long. I respect every one of the people in the group. I think they're all incredible. I think, obviously, the language barriers kind of hurt with the promos, but Io Sky is
the in-ring work
hell
is
of a
great.
promoter. Yeah, absolutely. Kairi Sane, we'll talk about her a little bit later.
Right.
But, I do, and I love Dakota Kai. And you haven't really been exposed to too much of Dakota Kai because she's basically been injured the entire time that you've been watching.
Yeah, she's been walking around with a leg brace. I think she might have not had the leg brace that night, but I'm not entirely sure. I saw an image of her recently where she wasn't wearing the leg brace.
I do have it in my notes. She was not wearing it on Raw.
Ah, there it is.
That I know for sure, but she came out in puffy pants. I can't remember if it was Smackdown or Rumble. She came out with puffy pants, and she's been doing that a lot and have the brace underneath. But no brace on Raw. So hopefully she's coming back soon because she can go. She's great.
Cool.
But yeah, so they're playing the Bayley video package, and I my whole theory walking into the Rumble for the last month was that, especially later in the show when there's the belt, the title change, that Bayley's gonna get kicked out of this. Dakota Kai could speak Japanese, so she can kind of be the mouthpiece and wrestle. And obviously, like, Bayley's been getting the cold shoulder for the last 3 months. They've really dragged this out.
Yeah. Well, and the video piece that they put together, they really paint her more like, it didn't feel like it was in kayfabe. Like, it felt like it almost felt like a heel or a face turn almost.
It felt like a bit of a shoot, right? Like it was a little bit more real. And they're kind of humanizing Bayley a little bit more. And I think that the diehard WWE fans, I don't know how familiar you are, but Bayley is like a beloved face for years. The heel turn is the exception. So I think a lot of people are ready to I think a lot of people have appreciated her heel turn, but I think they're ready to bring her back. And everyone's very excited for her to be a face again, right? So they start painting this picture, and I'm starting to think, well, later on we have the Kabuki Warriors up for the gold. If they win, and Io's got the belt, it's a perfect opportunity for Bayley to lose the Rumble and go over, and be ostracized by Damage Control. But then I watched this video promo, and I'm like, we haven't gotten a single video package for anyone in the Women's Rumble that I can remember leading up to it. So it means something.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I don't think she's going to win. But I think they're trying to put emphasis on it for the DC turn, the Damage Control turn, and then bringing her back as more of a face against Damage Control. But it's a great video package. Very well done. I mean, that's what WWE does better than any other wrestling group, right? Is the video packages are unreal.
The video packages are amazing, and the standout I think in the last 6 months since I've started watching has been the R-Truth. Judgment Day is my family video package that I did 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
Just
one of the
art.
best things the company's ever put out in the history of ever, and it led to the Tom and Nick jokes that are going around on the Judgment Day, which is fucking great. Sorry, didn't want to divert there.
No, I mean, we're going to talk about R-Truth a lot moving forward, both today and in future episodes. But yeah, I think that's the only video package we've really seen.
I think let's try to keep it focused on the main things here, because I'm looking at the list of the card, and there's a bunch of there's Austin Theory, there's and Carmelo Hayes, which was fine. It was kind of like a redo of their match a couple weeks ago. I didn't really get anything from it too much, but what do you think here?
Well, yeah, we'll go in order here, but I don't really have much to say about that one either. We get all this Baby Rock Part 2, R-Truth just fucking slinging humor all over the place. We love him. The does this mean I have to quarantine line, and then him thinking all this was Pierce was just comedy gold. I fucking love that man so much. Like, do
Where'd you get
not,
that hair?
do not hurt our truth. Your hair looks beautiful. And then we get the Carter Chance and Kabuki Warriors. So there's one question I have to ask you, Will. Did you know that Carter and Chance love to party and dance? Because let me tell you,
What?
they love to party and dance.
They love
All they want to tell
I never
you,
got that.
every time. You know, there's
Never
flashing.
got
They love EDM and they love partying and they love dancing, and you need to know this about them. It is very important.
That explains the color in the hair.
See, now you get it. Now you get it.
Okay.
So
Now
the crowd is
I'm
absolutely
blind.
dead for this one.
Unfortunately, so yeah, which sucks because especially like the Kabuki Warriors, like Asuka and I can't remember.
Kairi Sane.
I Kairi Sane. I mean, I really like Asuka. I really like Asuka in the ring. But yeah, the crowd was dead, and it was
I think actually like. Yeah, it was definitely a bathroom break. I knew what was happening here from the jump. I knew the Kabuki Warrior was going to win. It was funny when they introduced Carter and Chance. Two things. One, crowd's completely dead, except if you watch the video, they show the Kabuki Warriors in the ring waiting for them. There's one woman about 10 rows up in the first bowl who's just dancing her face off in the aisle. Just absolutely loving Carter and Chance. All about them. Just giving her. Just absolutely so happy that they're coming out. Everyone does not give a shit. I think they booed them, actually, to some extent, when they were coming out.
Oh, that sucks.
And that's the thing about Carter and Chance is, they do the choreography and the teamwork really well, but there's no heart. The basics, like the punching and the kicking and like the building in a crowd, all of that is just missing from them. All of their real violence is at like 3/4 speed. They go to throw a punch and it's like slow, boom.
Yeah.
Whoa, boom. And so, Casey Catanzaro never really had, like, are you familiar with Casey Catanzaro at all?
No.
She's Katana Chance. She was an American Ninja Warrior, which I was a big fan of when she was on Ninja Warrior before she was in WWE.
Oh, okay.
And she never really had a lot of charisma on that show. And you can't teach that. And she kind of got into WWE pretty late when they signed her. And it's just like, there's just that missing spark, Carter's got moves. Carter doesn't really have the size, but she's a better promo and she's a better like just pure one-on-one athlete, I think, in the ring. But yeah, this whole tag team, I understand they were just kind of placeholder champions trying to get them over, but they're just so small. It's so hard to believe them beating anyone without like really embracing that cruiserweight style where they're really truly high flying. Everything just feels a little too choreographed, and I hope the best for them. And honestly, like, I don't really have that high opinion of Kairi Sane either. I know a lot of people love her from her original WWE run, but she's rough too. And did you see that pin? That was a hard pin by Kairi Sane. Oof. She pinned, I think it was Carter, and she held that pin to like a 6 count. And that's like mad disrespectful, bro. Like, you don't just sit on the person and hold them, especially when you're taking the belts off them. It's just a little.
Yeah, I remember it was Asuka that did the pin, and she was sitting on him.
It was a little bit rough. But yeah, so whatever. Title change. Bayley comes out. She gets iced by DC, furthering my opinions here that I think that we're heading for a breakup. Just getting completely iced. So then we move on to our typical backstage Bloodline promo. Jimmy and Paul together are just so amazing. They're incredible.
I love them. I love them both. Jimmy, this whole like evil Jimmy thing that he's been doing, where he's just a little bit more wild-eyed and he's like, no yeet, fucking great. Loving every second.
And I don't really love Jay or Jimmy's ring work. They're fine, but they're great on the mic. And Jimmy being like the shit heel, laugh at him heel, like kind of a dumb Mysterio of the group in a way. Been loving that, and he's playing right into it, and he's doing a great job at it.
He's well aware of what his position is in that.
Absolutely. And I am over Solo. Like, I think he's going to be great for years to come, but they pushed him in early. He's so boring, and I understand that's kind of the point, but he's not doing anything with it.
I heard a fantastic theory online on Reddit, and this guy, a guy saying similar thing. He was over Solo until he found this cheat code to help get him over in your head a little bit.
Let's hear it.
Imagine his thumb is talking to him.
like what's that guy? I don't remember the name. Senor. That's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Every time he's looking at his thumb, it's just talking to him.
Every time it's his thumb going like "fuck him up" or something.
It's just a schizophrenic wrestler. I'm gonna try that moving forward. I'm gonna report back to you, listeners, next week on my experience. With
it works. Feeding
it's the dialogue sweet. To the thumb. So pretty standard bloodline stuff here. We got Aldous Baby Rock Part 3. Bianca pulls a number. Bailey comes in. A little bit of physical comedy with the roller. Very good. Baby Rock needs to learn how to use an iPad. To fake use an iPad better. Because if you watch her, she's just like scribble, 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 touch, touch. And it's just like, that's not how iPads work. Like, what are you doing? If you were typing, you'd be typing.
I could have sworn she was wearing a clipboard or using a clipboard.
That's how great it was. So yeah, whatever. That's another one of those. So then we get the Bobby Lashley Final Testament face to face. You know, I like Bobby a lot. He's just so bland on the mic. He's such an imposing force. I really miss MVP. Like, I don't know if you were around for the Hurt Business at all. Did you see any of that?
Well, I don't think I saw any of that, but I do remember MVP. MVP was over during the time that I was paying attention. I think he was United States champion at the time.
Yeah, he was US champ for quite a bit. I think multiple times. So he was doing a thing with Bobby Lashley called the Hurt Business, where he was like the Paul Heyman, he was the mouth, and it made things just a lot more smooth because Bobby is just people don't want to boo Bobby, right? Like you could tell when they started the whole Bobby Lashley Street Profits thing, they were trying to make him heel. But the people didn't want to boo because they love Bobby so much and they love the Street Profits. So they tried and tried and tried month after month. And then I think they just realized, like, we're not going to get them over as heels. Let's get a heel team to come up against them. But, like, the Final Testament, like, I like the design. I did like the cross shirts, the TF cross shirt. Pretty surprised, actually, that they went with the religious symbolism on this. I didn't see that coming. I thought they were going to stay far away from that. But whatever. But, like, the whole, like, I like AOP. I think they're a physically imposing tag team. They use their weight well. I love Paul Ellering. Are you familiar with Paul Ellering at all? The bald old guy?
No. I'll go right on record here that the only person that I'm familiar in this stable at all is Karrion Kross, and that is even in like a fleeting sense.
Right. So Paul Ellering, every time I always struggle with this. Paul Ellering was the manager of the Legion of Doom, or the Road Warriors, more accurately, before they were the Legion of Doom.
Okay, I do know Paul Ellering, actually.
Yeah, so he was their manager for all of the 80s and early 90s. And not only was he their manager in the show, he was also their personal road manager. Like, he managed their finances, their bookings, traveling, everything, right?
Yep.
And he is fantastic on the mic. But the problem with Final Testament is there's just like, why have Paul Ellering if he's not going to be the voice? Like, AOP is silent, right? So it makes sense for Paul Ellering to do all the to do all the talking, but now you're shoveling him in with Cross, who does a lot of talking, and even Scarlett, who does a lot of talking. It just doesn't really work for me. And I like Cross. Go ahead. Sorry,
I'm so pissed that I didn't notice it. I didn't pick up on that. It was Paul Ellering because I watched the Dark Side of the Ring episode where they were talking about Road Warrior.
Right, yeah.
And that whole history. So now I literally just Googled Paul Ellering. I'm like, fuck, I should have caught that. God damn it, Will.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is like he was the manager of AOP before in NXT in a time when I did not watch WWE. And so AOP was like, if we're going to come back, we're still going to bring Paul, because I think Paul still was working with them on the indies. So that was kind of like part of their, like, if you're going to bring us back, you got to bring back Paul. But there's just like there's too many pieces in this group that don't really make sense. And like, I really like Karrion Kross, and I think he's got a lot of potential. but they just can't stick it with him. It's so close. I don't know what's not there. I don't think Final Testament is it. Go ahead.
I have a pitch. He gets possessed by the spirit of Jesse Ventura.
Starts talking with that cadence. He becomes the third man in the Smackdown booth.
I'm not joking. His Jesse Ventura is almost as good as Will Sasso's. Not quite, but it's getting there.
He does a great job too on the mic. Like he talked, even like the whats, which trip up a lot of wrestlers. He talked through the whats perfectly. He didn't pause and give them an opportunity, but then he also addressed it and then moved forward. It's just, I just don't see them going over on this though. Like I don't see, if you really want to push this group, then you have to have them beat the Street Profits and Bobby. And I do not think that's possible with how hot Mello is, how hot Bobby is. It's not going to happen. So no, you're going to just like feed them to Bobby and Mello, or Bobby and the Street Profits, and they're going to lose right off the bat, presumably. And then Carrion's going to be in the same place that he was the last 6 months to a year, just getting, building up a rivalry and getting crushed. Whether it's AJ, who else did he work with in the summer? I'm trying to remember, but it's been consistent. It's Ray. He fought Ray for a bit. It's just been like,
right.
Let's portray him as this main boss who then just gets defeated every time. I don't know. I think he might need to go away from WWE and kind of reestablish himself if he wants to get over.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So enough of that. We got all this Baby Rock Part 4. Jimmy pulls a number. He's sad. We know now in retrospect it was number 2, which I anticipated something along those lines that it would be early based on his reaction. You got the Theory Mello rematch after the stoppage a couple weeks ago. Waller's a great shit heel. I really like what they're doing with Waller and Theory. But, it's a very quick match, especially with the commercial. It flew by.
Yeah. And really, it was, and like I said earlier, it's a redo. It's a redo from from a couple of weeks before. They're really trying to push Carmelo out of NXT and into the main roster, but they're still kind of building him as an NXT star.
Yeah, and then did you see that response Trick got when he came out? Like, I know they're in Miami, so they're in the Florida. Yeah. Florida's pretty much the hot spot of wrestling, especially for NXT being there in in Orlando. But Mello got Trick got a hell of a response coming out. Everyone knew whoop that Trick. Like, very impressive that he's got that kind of standing immediately out the gate. And it was kind of weird how they had him come out and save him, but then continued the strain between them, which I know is part of NXT. I haven't really watched much NXT this month, but I know there's an underlying storyline of them breaking up, and that's where they're headed.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting.
On the note of the crowd chanting, I think there's especially lately, maybe this has been going on longer, but I haven't been paying attention. But lately, I feel like the crowd participation, the crowd involvement for when things require crowd involvement is so at another level. Like, even if people don't know exactly who that person is, like, say that stadium, like they're in Miami, like they most likely know who Trick Williams is. But if you did that in, I don't know, let's say Calgary, I still think that the wave of people doing whoop that Trick would just start to build. People just get involved in such a crazy way now than I don't think that I've seen in the 30 hours of 90s wrestling that I watched last week.
Yeah, and that's a simple one too for people to get behind. People around in the crowd cannot know what's going on, and they can hear distinctly whoop that Trick and the cadence matching the theme, and can get behind it very quickly.
Absolutely. I think it's even written on the Jumbotron somewhere.
Oh yeah, really?
Maybe. I know for R-Truth, that "What's up?"
Yeah,
it's written there, so people even read it and they go I know the catchphrase here.
Yeah, it's like karaoke.
Yeah, it's like karaoke.
But yeah, it was a quick match. Whatever. They had to basically just finish off what they had started a couple weeks ago, and then we get Eladio back. Yay, cool. Is he baked? He looked baked.
Yeah, probably.
And it was a nice little moment there with Solo and Paul, and it was haha very funny, whatever. And that just leads right into the Knight versus Solo match with quite a bit of time left on the clock, which was surprising to me when I looked at the clock and how long it was going. They were working a really good match in the beginning. You know, Knight was going after the thumb, which a lot of people haven't really attacked. They haven't really attacked that angle in matches with Solo to kind of disable the thumb.
Because Knight knows, man. He knows that the power comes from the thumb, and because it's talking to Solo. If you mute the thumb, break that motherfucker, it won't talk to Solo anymore.
Mute Solo.
Solo will turn into like a human Roomba. He'll just like start walking around in random directions, just bumping into the ropes.
You know, I liked how it started. You know, they were selling the thumb. Solo was doing a great job at it. There was a "We Want Tables" chant that came way too early. Like they're telling this excellent wrestling match story right now with the thumb work, and then they start chanting "We Want Tables." Like, get the fuck out of here! You think you're getting a table in Knight versus Solo when they are going to the Royal Rumble tomorrow? Yeah, it's not going to happen, bros.
No, they're not.
And also, that chant could just die in a fire. But Knight was really going over.
That's going to be one of our episodes. Is like a bottom 5 crowd chants.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got a couple in mind for that one. Fucking awful. Yeah. We Want Tables. Get out of here. It's so disrespectful. But yeah, Knight was really going over. You know, after the break, they kind of dropped him attacking the thumb, which I didn't love. And then you just got a bunch of nonsense. You know, AJ comes in to be a cock. You know,
yeah,
it looks like AJ LA Knight is going to be what's next for these guys because they're really feeding into that. You know, it's tough with LA Knight because he's so over and you have to feed him people. You have to feed him and keep him over. You have to give him talent to beat people that actually mean something. So, obviously, I think AJ is the next in line there. I don't know if AJ is going to do the job, but I think if LA continues to have that heat, then they're going to put him over, probably at Elimination Chamber, I would imagine.
That sounds right.
The end was really dragging. Like I said, it started with a lot of time on the clock, but oof.
It was all right. Like it I can't say it was predictable. Like I didn't see it coming, but especially with like the double betrayal that went on, like with, well, not betrayal, but like AJ showing up, smashing LA, and then turning on Sikoa, and then I think didn't Randy come out as well?
Well, that was the weird thing to me. It was like, so AJ hits Solo and Jimmy, and then he hits Knight, and then he hits AJ, and then he hits Solo. Sorry. AJ hits Knight, then he hits Solo, then he hits Jimmy, and then he sneaks out mid-match for what purpose? He comes out here to fight Knight, or to smash Knight for what purpose? And then Randy comes out, because why? To save Solo and Jimmy from AJ? Because
to get involved?
Knight's in the corner? And then Randy clears house, which is fine. Cool. Clears house. And it's still dragging. And then he's just like sitting in the middle of the ring. And then he celebrates. And then Knight comes in and BFTs him. And that's
AJ comes back out. AJ comes back out and tries to do a phenomenal forearm.
Right. And he gets RKO'd, right?
I think he ducks it. And then Randy hits him with his Orton RKO or Orton DDT.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's just a weird ending. I was really enjoying the Solo Knight match, honestly, especially when they were doing the storytelling before the break. Like, it was a quality match, and there was still a lot of time on the clock. I don't know what happened in production, but I just feel like they really dragged it out at the end.
Yeah, they should have just kept it as a straight match.
Yeah, but now, we're set up for... So that's the end of that. There's really not much to say about that. It was fine. It was pretty standard go home. Yeah. And then we got Rumble.
And let me remind you, folks, this is an hour and a half into this podcast.
This is an hour and a half. We're really going to have to try to fly through Rumble and Raw here. It's really going longer than I anticipated. But really, I don't really have much to say about the Rumble. So it actually is going to be a lot shorter than, I think, Smackdown even. Because it's only 4 matches. And there's not really much to say other than generalizations, I think, about the Women's Rumble.
Well, then let's start with the Women's Rumble then. There's not much to talk about here other than, like obviously, it was a really good Rumble. The upset, I think, for us was Bayley winning. But in hindsight, now that we talked about the video promo that was on Smackdown, like, they were clearly gearing us up for that, but we weren't smart enough to see it. At least I wasn't, because to me, I was expecting the main players, obviously, either Becky or Bianca.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it makes sense.
There's an outside chance of Nia Jax winning it, but I didn't think so because of the.
It was just. I think both Rumbles this applies to, but it was a really good. It really set up a lot. It was a very good, a great way to start our road to WrestleMania. So we're in the Rumble. We're live from Tropicana Field, which is hilarious to me how many people were in there, because as a baseball fan, the baseball team that plays out of that place is like notorious for having no fans. So it's the most people I've ever seen in that building. We get Pat McAfee, which, yay. We'll soon find out that we're going to have to deal with this motherfucker every week. But when he came out, I was like, yay, cool, McAfee. I'm not really a huge McAfee fan. You got Natalya starting. Yeah, you got Naomi coming out, which was a nice return. Didn't see that one coming. And from what I can tell, she is full-time in WWE now.
They start off with a nice little handshake. I had no idea who Naomi was, but the crowd certainly did, or at least enough people in the crowd certainly did to get the rest of the crowd involved. Because when they started chanting "Welcome back, enough people were saying it that I was like, this is a cute moment. And it was a good way to. I think it was almost like a too soft of a way to start a Rumble, but it's the beginning of the night. We're just getting warmed up.
She got a big
sense.
pop.
It was smart booking.
Like, Naomi got a massive pop for someone who hasn't been on WWE in like a year or two. But yeah, some general things about the Rumble. I thought Jordynne Grace was a good touch. I thought she had a great showing. She had got that KOD on the edge of the ring, which was massive. They put her over really nicely, didn't jeopardize the future of having a relationship with TNA. Thought it was very well done.
Yeah. I love, it's interesting how they kind of revealed this to be they're not setting up any sort of expectations of partnerships with TNA, but it's good to know that they're not afraid to dive into other promotions,
Yeah, totally. I mean, they've done some things with TNA in the past, mostly just to fill out the Rumble. That was one thing about the Women's Rumble I will say is traditionally with the Women's Rumble, they have to kind of fill out a few spots with returning people to make it interesting. Or some real undercard women. But for the most part, I think this was probably the best Women's Rumble ever. And the entire roster 1 to 30 was pretty respectable.
Pretty stacked, yeah. Everybody was fun to watch. Nothing too crazy in the sense of any returns. I mean, we had Liv Morgan at the end.
I think the big thing mostly was Jade finally showing up. Jade Cargill finally coming out.
Jade Cargill. Yeah,
and
who put
having
on
a really good
display.
Showing. Yeah, they protected her. They didn't put her in too many wrestling spots, but she got to slam Nia. She got to throw her out. She got to eliminate Nia Jax. The dual press thing with Bianca. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely going to be a thing. And same with the dual press thing with Bianca. That's definitely going to lead to something at some point. Definitely good teases. She took out Becky and Naomi with a nice spot there with, whipping her around and knocking Becky out. And then, I guess Liv Morgan was the returning surprise back from the weed charges. And I didn't mind the way that Bayley won either. It was a bit of a shit heel win, which is kind of in character with her right now.
Yep.
And, all in all, a very solid Women's Rumble. Probably the best Women's Rumble of all time, honestly. The best one I've seen. And that might have something to do with how much we're following now, but,
that could play into it. I think it's kind of funny that we're this is the best Women's Rumble of all time. But we have, such a lukewarm response to it. I don't know.
Well, I think the thing with the Rumble in general is, like, if you really want to sit here and have a full episode dedicated to the Rumble, you can go over every little thing, which we can't because we're already an hour and a half in.
Wow.
And it's same thing with the men's. I think too is going to be pretty cut and dry because there's only so many things you can cover. Like you can cover each and every elimination and stuff like that. But
nah, we're not going to do that.
And at the end of the day, it's
No,
a storytelling device for WWE just as much as it is for us. There's not really much to analyze other than let's talk about the people who showed up and talk about the main players and how they did.
Right. So that was
Bailey.
Bailey won the Rumble.
Yeah, good for her. I think she's going to win. I think she's going to challenge Io. I think it's going to... Well, I think Damage Control is probably going to ruin the relationship with her, and that will lead to her challenging Io, if I had to guess.
Yeah, something like that.
But,
we'll see how it goes.
It's still kind of up in the air right now for where they're going to go with it. So then they do the 4-way for the championship second match. So if there was any doubt that Roman was going to walk out champion,
there it is.
Completely
He's
dispelled.
Gonna win.
It's over.
Honestly, I was a little disappointed with this match. Like there were some good spots, some good moments here and there, but the ending was just, it was really weak. The ending was quite weak.
I think it was about as good as it could be. You know, what can you say? It's a 4-way match. There's going to be a lot of people, you know, hugging the corner as they wait for their spot. It was balanced. Everyone had a good run. You knew Roman was going to win. You knew there was going to be interference. It was about as good as it could be. You know, oh, Solo's here. Wow, didn't see that come. Oh, who's under the hood? Oh, it's Solo. Oh, wow, shocking. Incredible. Oh, I didn't see that coming. The triple kick out. That's all I really want to talk about. Like, the only thing I really want to focus on with this match is the triple kick out.
Okay.
It was both the lamest thing I've ever seen and the greatest thing I've ever seen. Because it made no fucking sense. It's like they had Randy and Knight were stacked up. But both of their shoulders were on the mat, so the referee wouldn't count. But
it was such a weird rule thing.
2-person match, it would be a double count. AJ was late. So Roman had to take his time looking around. Then AJ comes in with the Styles Clash. Oh no, yeah. Yes, I think it was a Styles Clash. And then Roman falls on the pile, but his shoulders are clearly not on the mat because it's massive humanity. And then all three of them kick out. It was
ridiculous.
I see where they were going with it. It's just the execution could use a little bit of work. Just a bit. Just a touch. Yeah.
A little bit of work on the timing. But ultimately, we knew what was going to happen. As soon as we saw the card earlier that day, we knew what was going to happen. There was no surprises here. Like I said, some good spots, but nothing that I think is... honestly, I'm having trouble remembering, specific moments other than Solo showing
everyone
up.
Everyone got their work, you know? Randy got to RKO some people. LA got to BFT some people. AJ got Styles Clash in. Roman had a Superman punch and a spear. Everyone got their little spot in. I thought they balanced it pretty well. No one really came off as looking weaker than anyone else. There was no bottom man. Everyone had their spot. You know, I think we're heading for AJ Knight, like I said. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Randy, but we'll see. But yeah, like I said, it was decently clean. Even the finish, you know, the finish wasn't. You had the pull out by Solo when Knight was about to win, but other than that, Solo was pretty much taken out of the equation pretty early. So I was a little bit surprised to see Roman get a fairly clean win, but it was also nice to see Roman get a fairly clean win because they have been really relying on the interference and the run-ins. So
right, yeah,
it was fine. It was fine. It was fine for what it was. About as good as it could be for what it was.
Yeah. It was a weird booking, but it was for the storyline that they were building, and it was for a storyline because SmackDown has these especially when it comes to LA Knight and Randy Orton, they have these characters that are they have these superstars who are at a level that, like, I feel like LA Knight's like almost up in terms of booking. Like, he's so over right now that he's almost too far above like the US championship right now. So they kind of have to demote him a little bit before he can go to that level. Cause I don't think he's at that WWE championship level, but he's so goddamn over that it's kind of fucking with some of the storylines. And then you have Randy show up and he's like Randy, you know, and then AJ Styles. It's just, there's a lot kind of going on. So it's a weird booking, but it's for the fans. Right.
Yeah. You know, like, what can you really do with, like, what is putting a belt on Knight really going to do? Is it going to make him any more popular? No. Like, I'm talking a mid-card belt. It's not going to really do anything for him. He's already so over, and he's managed to maintain it now for quite some time. I think you just kind of have to punt for a bit here. I think Rollins is going to probably drop the championship at WrestleMania. I don't know who that's necessarily going to be against. I think WWE probably doesn't really know right now because I think their plan was Punk. Rollins needs a break. Into it. Rollins needs a year off, right? Or 6 months at least. But we'll talk about it later. But I think some of the options there are Knight, Gunther, if you want to drop him finally from the IC. But then it just seems like if you're going to drop the IC off Gunther, it's got to be a big competitor as well, right? But yeah, lots of moving pieces. That's a story for another day when we have more time. Let's move on to Owens Paul for the U.S. Championship.
This is my highlight of the night.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a pretty solid match. I am continuously shocked by how good Logan Paul is at this.
Solid match.
Wild.
Logan Paul got his ass whooped by Kevin Owens, and I was so impressed by the fact that he let Owens just beat the tar out of him for really like 20 minutes.
How to the psyche of a match, his presence in the ring, and when, like, his facials, when to be a dick, when to cheat a little bit, when to say things, knowing where the camera is. He's so present in the moment. He's so good at this, and I hate him so much as a human being, which makes it even better to hate him as a heel.
Yeah. He's so built for this, and he's so aware of branding and persona and how to play off crowds and get a reaction out of people. He's just built for it, and he did it. He did an incredible job in this match. And I was talking to somebody about it the other day, and they were saying like, like Logan Paul, he was like disappointed with Logan Paul's performance. And I was like, no way, man. Like the bumps he was taking, like, that's wrestling too. And he got his ass whooped by Kevin Owens. And
he was selling it too. He was selling it well.
He was selling it hard, and the look on his face. There was this there was a post-match interview that he did where the interviewer was like, "How do you feel, Logan?" And he's like slurring. He's like, come and get it." He just walks off camera. Just still selling, and he's so goddamn good. And just the bumps he was taking through that, I was so impressed. I mean, the other thing is about Logan Paul is when he does those big spots, because he's a high flyer type, and a really good high flyer for the size that he is, because I think he's like 6'2", somewhere around that range. Like, not a lot of people his size can get the air that he does so naturally, and he does it so safe.
He really does. Like, and you know what? WWE's been really smart putting him in the ring with people who can carry a match. He's not fighting, someone who's young. He's not fighting Braun Breaker, someone who's a young up and comer who doesn't necessarily have maybe the in-ring intelligence to or experience to run the match. They're putting him with the right people to carry the match, and like you saw that with Owens. Owens was directing the match, but Paul is great at rolling with the punches and knowing when to improvise and knowing when to sell and when to delay and when to hold something a little bit longer than normal. Is just his natural acumen for the business is just off the charts.
It's incredible. It's incredible to me. He's naturally built for it. And on top of that, the ending of this match was great. Like, a really interesting ending. Good.
And the camera angle too, when the ref, like, that angle with the ref stopping at 2 3/4 and seeing the knuckles
and looking at the knuckles. Fantastic.
Very well done. Incredibly well done. And also I wanted to point out a couple other things from before. the Waller Theory interference. If they make a Waller Theory Paul stable, what a great fucking shit
let's
heel.
go.
Just the three
Let's
worst human beings on the SmackDown roster as portrayed in SmackDown. I would absolutely. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. It's there for the taking.
Let's do it. I'm all in. And let Waller speak, like, for all of them, and way too often.
Way too often. Until the point where they get so pissed with him that they beat the shit out of him. And maybe that's when we finally get the Waller face turn, if that could ever possibly get over. Also, the spot with Logan and Graves, when Logan was on the top rope and said to Graves, "I heard you said no one could superplex Kevin Owens. I gotta show you." And then Kevin Owens with a terrific reversal. Just that scoop slam off the top. Logan going down like a sack of potatoes. Really great.
And the look on his face
enjoyable.
right after, his eyes were all wide, and he was like, "What the fuck is happening right now?" Just selling like nobody's business. Like, ugh.
Even after Paul wins, Owen snaps, which is a good touch. Puts Logan through the table. Logan just like kind of looks and sees a package of tissues, starts pulling them out, starts attending to his wounds. Then fucking Owen circles back, stands over him, sees a pack of Halls, and grabs the Halls and then leaves. Great stuff. Just great stuff by those two. What a fantastic match. Definitely the highlight of the night.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun watching them. Highlight of the night. Let's move on to the men's rumble.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just going to give some quick highlights here. There's not really much to talk about. I think general thing is, like, really impressed by all 30 competitors. Very balanced rumble. There was not a lot of surprises, but I don't necessarily think you really needed them when you have the roster as stacked as you do right now. A little disappointed, but in retrospect, more disappointed in the moment than when I look back and when I watched it a second time. Jimmy and Jay starting was a great touch because both of them aren't going to win, so you get a little opportunity for them to go face to face when they're on two different brands. Andrade shows up, which is something I should have saw coming because I knew he was coming back. Had a good showing, good enough anyways. The McAfee really frustrated me on the commentary all night, but particularly in the Rumble because you can kind of tell he hasn't really been keeping up with the product. I don't think he really knows who's face and who's heel since he left.
Yeah.
When he went off on Shinsuke and he was so excited to see Shinsuke, and it's like, dude, come on, you gotta play the game here. Everyone hates Shinsuke right now.
Yeah, Shinsuke's heel, like, straight up.
One thing I noted is we were 10 people in, and I wanted to play the who's the biggest plug in this match. So at 10 people down, the biggest plugs I think are Carlito or Karrion Kross. Probably Karrion Kross is the bigger plug right now. He hasn't been around as much. He's had more opportunities than Carlito to get over, and he still really hasn't. So I think Kross is probably the worst at this point, 10 people in. Okay. I thought AOP showing up was pretty lame. Like, I understand that the Rumble is no DQ. But, like, hey, let's have some DQs. Like, let's put some more rules on the Rumble. Like, Kross eliminated Bobby even though he was already out. Like, can we just treat it with a little bit more respect and a little bit more like a real event? Like, what's the purpose of having general managers and referees and all of these things and not have one of them step in and say, hey, Bobby's not eliminated. Karrion was out. He clearly caused the elimination. What are we doing here? I know it's a little nitpicky. I don't love it. I'm just not a big fan of stretching the rules that much. Bronson Reed comes out. What do you think? Does he take the plug title from Kross?
Yeah. Bronson Reed. I don't like him.
I know you're not a big fan. I think
not a big fan.
He is a big man in the Rumble, though. So I feel like that kind of makes Kross still the plug of the match because, like, at least he's a big man in the Rumble, which is like gives him a little bit extra juice. because he gets to be big guy in the Rumble. He can't eliminate him. Everyone's got to try. Oh yeah, you can beat him in the match. Can you put him over the top rope?
But that's just general shit that we've seen before with with giants in the ring. It's just like, okay, you get 5 people on him. They're all trying to put him over, and then he turns around. Everybody goes, ah. So it's like,
yeah.
It's
we just saw it with
really
Nia.
Shocking. We saw it with Nia. It wasn't really that crazy. So Bronson Reed, like, I just don't like. I could get behind it if we change the gimmick. I just don't get what he is, who he is, and why he is.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you. And we'll touch a little bit more about it when we talk about Raw, which might actually have to get pushed into another podcast at this point.
Possibly. We'll have to do. We're already into Patreon content territory. Actually, I do want to mention real quick, because we forgot about it in our women's coverage as well, that a huge highlight for me was R-Truth in both Rumbles.
Oh my God, that was a great
had in the women's, and the look on his face, the selling that he does on his face when he runs by Valhalla, like, who the hell is this? Like, he's never seen her before in his life.
So good. So incredible. Where's all the men? Adam?
Where'd your hair go?
Oh my God, so good. So what else is there to talk about? I mean, there's a lot to talk about Rumble, but like, Kofi came in. I thought we were going to have that one of his weird ass Kofi doesn't get eliminated by some weird shit. But I mean, he failed the last 2 years to do something creative to not get eliminated when they had spots set up for him. So I think this year they were like, let's just eliminate him flat, and maybe we'll bring back the save attempts some other time. You got Ivar coming in. Maybe he's the new plug. What do you think, Ivar or Bronson? Who's the bigger plug?
Bronson. Yeah, Bronson.
Still Bronson for you.
Yeah, Bronson sucks. Ivar can go. Like, even in that match, like, he was doing some big, like, high kicks and stuff like that. Like, Ivar, when he shows up, like, he's a flexible dude. He's athletic, and he puts on a show. Gimmick sucks. Gimmick is the fucking worst in the entire company. But
it's some Vince
God
shit.
damn, can he put on a match, man? Like the Chad Gable Ivar match that happened on last Monday before Rumble. Fantastic. I was like, holy shit, these guys are just giving her here.
Yeah, I really love Ivar's work in the ring. It's just the gimmick is shit and lame, and his voice is not really conducive for someone to be cutting promos.
His size. Yeah.
He's just got like a high-pitched little, like, it just doesn't match his body. So I think you're going to have to kind of keep pushing him with a manager of some sort to be the mouth. But he could definitely wrestle his face off. Braun Breaker came in and got a good pop and had a great showing. I read somewhere that he basically took over the Lesnar spot after all the McMahon stuff came out, and it was highly implicated that Lesnar was the one who requested the P videos. I believe they referred to a former UFC champion, and there's only so many people that applies to that are involved with WWE.
It is certainly not CM Punk. Let me tell you.
No. Yeah, no. So he had a good showing. He had that little face-off with Omos, Omos, right? Omos. Apparently he's a great guy. And I love that MVP came out with him. That gives me hope for the future, that MVP might be back full-time.
Nice.
And MVP is a great mouthpiece, but he's still just like a slightly better Great Khali. He can't really wrestle. Here he's a great guy. He's really friendly and nice to everyone, but he's just not very good at this. And I'm not sure how much more time he has to prove that he's good at this.
Well, that's just an old McMahon thing too. Like Vince would book these guys that were just huge, but they couldn't wrestle, like Khali and
Khali, Giant Gonzalez. There's a whole history of people that he's tried to push that just really didn't have it.
People are wise to that stuff now. Like in the 80s, you could probably get away with it, but now people want like the spectacle. The spectacle of the sport has gone to such a different level that the athleticism involved to make a match interesting is insane. I from going from WrestleMania 12 this afternoon to watching like pieces of Smackdown and Raw, it's like watching a Ford it's like watching a Ford Equinox race a fucking like a Jaguar. You know what I mean? Like it's just
No, I
it's
feel
two
you.
different leagues.
Oh, I absolutely feel it. Yeah, it's completely different. And you know, we were talking about this. I was talking about this to my coworker today. The I fell out of WWE because it got so crazy and over the top with tables, ladders, and chairs and blood and everything that when they tried to pull it back, everything was bland and boring. It was like we're not swearing anymore. We're not doing anything wrong. We're not bleeding. We're not doing crazy shit. It was better for the health of the wrestlers, but it's bad for the product and bad for the business. And so now coming back into it, they've done a very good job of finding that balance of being protective of the wrestlers and having great spots, but also not doing unprotected chair shots to the head and having everyone bleed every second day. I do wish it would be a little bit more of that. I wish they would introduce that once, twice, 3 times a year to have more emphasis on it.
Sure.
But the current product as it stands, in the way it's being presented in that PG 14A style, is quite good. They're really killing it. And I think this Rumble is indicative of that, with how much athleticism was in the ring at all times, right?
Absolutely. All right, let's skip ahead to the end of the Rumble here.
Well, yeah, we're getting into the end here. R-Truth comes in, throws JD in just to get eliminated right away, which was a great touch.
Amazing.
Does the "you can't see me"? I was trying to help you get back in the ring. Does the "you can't see me" to Drew, goes the wrong way, gets immediately big booted. Or maybe it might have been not Drew, it might have been Gunther.
It was Gunther.
Yeah, it was Gunther.
Waiting outside the ring to get tagged in, also
great.
great.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
like he's like,
that
Dom,
was amazing.
Dom, take me in. Fucking so funny. He has no idea what's going on.
Saves the elimination of Dom from the Miz. I mean, we were killing some time with the R-Truth stuff, and I could have not been happier with it. You know, we ran that R-Truth thing into the ground in the Rumble for a solid 5 or 10 minutes, and I was loving every second of it for the
Love it.
Right before we got into the end game. You know, Priest eliminates Truth, even though Truth got him that paper. They bring Punk back in. He cleans up. Good showing for him, getting back into the ring, getting back on live television in a WWE ring for the first time in 10 years.
I was surprised.
I was
genuinely surprised at how good he was. They must have been working him quite a bit behind the scenes at those like live events and house shows. Just to get him up to speed, because he's been out of the he wasn't out of the game, but I don't think AEW's like approach what is the same as WWE's. Like watching watching the AEW product. I don't know. Man, I'm probably speaking out of my ass here, but I wasn't expecting the showing that he had coming in.
He looked. It's unfortunate what happened, and we're going to touch on that eventually. But I thought he looked absolutely great in there. I thought he looked in impeccable shape, and he was moving around well and didn't give him too many rest spots. I do think he needs to find out what gel Cody uses and put that in his hair. Because by the end of it, he looked haggard as fuck. He's got to use the Cody gel,
rough.
Or he's got to shave his head.
Yeah, I don't know. It's he's always had a rough time with hairstyles.
He looked about 15 years older when he got out of it than he did when he got into it. He just had the Kramer hair. It was just poofed up.
Oh, it was hilarious. It looked great. And it worked though. It worked though in the situation because him and Cody just went for it. Like it wasn't a full like I don't think it was only about 10-ish minutes around there. And it could have gone a little bit longer, but I think it was perfect the amount of length that they had. And you could feel the weight of the moment in that situation. And the stress that I was feeling, because that was like we were saying to each other when we were watching it, that was the best case scenario. You could do either or in this situation, and I'm totally fine with it. My question here is, do you think he knew that his arm was fucked up during the match and was like, I need to change this because I know like I'm going to need recovery after this and then get eliminated? Give it to Cody, or do you think that was
no? I think it was always Cody. You can see like on the rewatch, you see Drew hit the future shock. You see him going to the corner. He tells the ref The ref brings another ref over who's probably like more senior. They talk it out. But that happens really early in Punk's run. And he really gives it for the rest. Like, you cannot tell he's injured the rest of the match.
I did not tell. Yeah, no.
He was putting people up for go to sleeps, and he was taking bumps. He was taking finishers to the full extent. He wasn't really being ginger with the arm at all. So I don't know if it was adrenaline or maybe he didn't feel as bad in the moment. I mean, he suffered a torn triceps before, so he knows the feeling. But he put in a very respectable showing after the injury. But I do think it was Cody all the way. I think maybe there was a moment there where they're like, do we need to change who the final two are? And I think Punk decided, no, I'm not going to fuck this up. I'm going to put the full shift in. Speaking of putting a full shift in, Jay Uso put a shift in. Like, when he got eliminated,
he did.
I was like, this guy's still fucking in there. And they had him a nice little run for him right at the end, right before he got eliminated.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else you really want to talk about with the Raw? I thought, like you said, I think the final two being in there for the last 10 minutes was a great piece.
Yep.
They both sold really well, their exhaustion, and I like the finish. No real problems with it. I'm really excited to see Cody win at WrestleMania. If he doesn't, I'm going to be pissed.
So the finish, I saw a video comparing the finish here to a finish from, I think it was maybe 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there, for the Royal Rumble. And it was a very similar finish to how Triple H eliminated CM Punk to win a Royal Rumble around that time. Maybe not Triple H, but it was a similar move where sets him up for the go to sleep, drops him, the other guy catches the leg, and then spins him around to throw him over the rope. So I thought that was a nice little callback there.
I like that. Yeah, I have some more thoughts about the Rumble that I want to touch on, but I think we're getting so late here. We'll wrap it up, and I'll push them to Raw, because most of them are, I want to discuss a lot about McIntyre. But these are all things I could touch on when we talk about Raw, because clearly we're going to have to push this to either a sub episode sometime in midweek or just push it to the beginning of next week's episode. We're
having a 2-parter season premiere, series premiere, baby.
Yeah. We'll launch like a quick little half an hour on Monday before the next Raw or something. Yeah, we went way too far. So I do have one segment at the end here, Will.
Okay.
That
he's going to show me his penis.
I've been hiding from you. Not my penis. We're going to keep the penis segment for next time, or maybe the PLE events, the premium live events.
The penis live events.
Let me just grab this. And this is going to be the final segment of our shows, so it's only going to be a surprise.
I really
once.
hope I know what it is, because I'd hate for you to show me a reference that I don't understand. And for those who are new to this show and new to like us as hosts, like we host other podcasts, and a running gag in all these shows is that I have like zero context for references most of the time.
No, I think you're going to get this one, but I'm gonna have to stick it. Here's the thing: I'm gonna have to stick this. Okay, let's just make sure this is all ready to go. Okay, and let's see if we can balance this volume here. Okay. Let's see how this goes. It's not. It's time to play a game. Time to play a game. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. Ha 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 ha. It's all about this game and how Will plays it. He's going to lose because it is a bit all about this game, and if he can win it, it's all about this game, and Will has to play it.
This is amazing.
All right, Will.
This is the best thing I think I've ever done.
It's game time, baby.
All right.
It's time to play the game where Will always loses and there are no prizes if he won anyways. Royal Rumble edition. Time keeps on slipping.
Am I going to have to defend
the
Vince
bottom
allegations
ropes
to a room of reporters?
Okay, well, I got a couple quizzes here for you surrounding the Royal Rumble to go out on a high note, to go out on a laugh.
Oh, wow.
So, Will,
Okay, I'm going to suck at this.
excluding the greatest Royal Rumble match, you're aware of what the greatest Royal Rumble is?
No.
Like, it was a thing they did it in Saudi Arabia, and there was like 60 entrants, and it went forever, and whatever, it was bullshit.
Oh,
So
God.
excluding the greatest Royal Rumble, I have the top 5 entrants by time spent in the ring.
Okay.
So the top 5 longest time spent in the ring in a single Royal Rumble. Okay?
All right.
So, we're going to start with number 5 at 1 hour and 16 minutes. And this was in the 2006 Royal Rumble. Will? 2006 Royal Rumble.
Did this
I'm gonna
person
need a guess
win?
from you. I do not have that information in front of me.
Cool.
I can't get that
1 hour,
information.
14?
1 hour and 16 seconds.
1 hour 16. 2006. Shawn Michaels?
No, that is a good guess. I'm going to give you a hint here. He is Shawn Michaels' best friend.
Triple H. Oh, that was my next
There you
guess.
go. Triple H. Triple H, baby. And he did not win that Royal Rumble. I'm finding out now he did not win that Royal Rumble. At number 4, from 1993. 1 hour, 1 minute, and 10 seconds. I'm going to give you a couple hints on this one because you're never going to get it. He is a former WWE champion. One of the longest runs of all time, in fact. He is pretty much universally hated. He had a shit gimmick. He made an appearance at the New York City Royal Rumble in about 2000-ish. The one where Scotty 2 Hotty and Grandmaster Sexay and Rikishi were all dancing in the ring. You know that one?
Yeah, I know that spot.
He made a surprise appearance at that Rumble where he was eliminated pretty quickly because everyone hates him. Do you have a guess? 1993.
1993, one of the longest reigning champions ever.
From a dark
Universally
period.
hated.
From a dark period in
Dark
WWE.
period. Oh man, the name that comes to mind is Ultimate Warrior.
Not a bad guess. I don't think he could ever go an hour and 1 minute and 10
that's why I
seconds
think
doing
it's dumb.
any activity. It is Bob Backlund. Are you familiar with Bob Backlund at all?
I am not. I would have never got that.
I didn't think you would. That was one of the hardest ones for sure. I encourage you to look up Bob Backlund. He
Bob
sucks.
Backlund.
Okay. The third most at 1 hour, 1 minute, and 35 seconds in the 2001 Royal Rumble. I believe he won this Royal Rumble. He's not talked about ever. You're not allowed to say his name on television.
Chris Benoit.
Chris Benoit, baby. We'll cover that
Sorry,
one.
I'm getting confused about your timing here. So Triple H was at 1 hour 16?
1 hour, 16 seconds.
Oh, 16 seconds. Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying 1 hour.
I may have
16
said
minutes.
minutes at one point, but okay. Number 2. He had a time of 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 15 seconds in the 2006 Royal Rumble, which I also believe he won. I'm trying to give you a hint here. 2006 Royal Rumble.
2006 Royal Rumble.
He has a family of wrestlers. And his father was a wrestler, and his son is a wrestler.
Ooh.
His name he is named after his uncle, actually, I believe. I believe it's his uncle or his cousin. He has the same wrestling name as his uncle or cousin. I believe it's his uncle. But he was advertised as the son of this man, even though he was actually his nephew.
Oh, Chavo.
No, actually. I thought you were going to nail it when you were so excited.
No.
Rey Mysterio.
Oh, shit.
Rey Mysterio.
Oh, god damn it. I didn't know Ray was a family of wrestlers.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio Jr., his uncle was Rey Mysterio, the original, which I believe Rey Mysterio means King Mystery? Mystery King?
And, it means dirtbag father is what it means.
And Rey Mysterio's actual son wrestles under the name El Hijo de Rey Mysterio, which I believe means son of the Mystery King. Even though Rey Mysterio was Rey Mysterio Jr. Okay, number 1. You got to get this one. 1 hour, 11 minutes. Thank you. Okay. You saw that. Okay, you knew that part. Okay, I figured you knew that. They talked about it a lot this week.
Yeah,
okay,
they talked about it a lot.
Second,
I saw it like 1,000 times.
Yeah, they over and over and over again. Okay, our second part 2 of this is, in our last part, there is no part 3, the longest cumulative time. So all of these wrestlers, it's the longest cumulative time spent in a Royal Rumble match. So if you were in an hour, you were in one Royal Rumble for a half an hour and another Royal Rumble for a half an hour, your cumulative time would be 1 hour.
Okay.
At number 5, at 4 hours and 50 seconds. Your hint is he was in the previous list. Okay, another hint for all of these. These are all wrestlers that were active in WWE in the 2010s. So they may have started in like 95,
such a dark period.
They were still wrestling in 20. All of these names you know. So all of these wrestlers are either still wrestling or were wrestling before. They're all big names.
Okay.
So first one, at 4 hours and 50 seconds. Your hint is he was in the previous list.
Ooh. 4 hours. Then I want to say Triple H then.
There you go. Nailed it. Triple H at 4 hours and 50 seconds has the 5th most cumulative time in a Royal Rumble match.
Wow.
Number 4.
All right.
4 hours and 5 minutes and 14 seconds. This man is still wrestling, and he is a 2-time winner of the Royal Rumble.
2-time winner of the Royal Rumble, but not consecutive Royal Rumbles.
He is a 2-time winner of the Royal Rumble.
Okay, gotcha.
He is still wrestling.
2-time winner of the Royal Rumble, still wrestling. Brock Lesnar?
No, it is Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes.
I did not say that it wasn't consecutive. I just said he was a 2-time winner. Surprising to me too, but I guess he did put in a lot of shifts when he was on like the mid card before he left.
Yeah.
But I was pretty surprised that he was that high up on the list for how long he was gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's a worker, man. He's been known to just do the work.
It's true. And he put in a hell of a shift this year too. I think he was about 50 minutes, somewhere around there, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Number 3 at 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 45 seconds. This man was also on the previous list. A reminder, the previous list was Gunther, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, Bob Backlund, and Triple H.
Okay.
4 hours.
Still wrestling. Still wrestling to this day.
Maybe.
No, Rey Mysterio.
Yeah. I think I gave you a few too many hints on that one.
Well, I was a toss-up between Ray and Chris, so I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess like Gunther wouldn't have amassed that amount of time. Bob Backlund, not wrestling, for sure. Chris Benoit, something happened to that guy. I'm not really too sure. They don't really talk about it very often, so...
I tried digging for it, but I keep on getting Max Headroom showing up on my computer just laughing at me.
Okay, number 2. 4 hours, 34 minutes, and 8 seconds. He was number 10 in the first quiz for most time spent in the Royal Rumble, and that was in 2021, where he put up a showing of about 1 hour as well. Still currently wrestling. He did make an appearance on the Royal Rumble event this year.
Event as in not the actual match, but like during the PLE.
He appeared on the show at some point.
I want to say Seth Rollins.
Ooh, not a bad guess, but you got to think longevity here. for a number that high?
Then
Who's been
Roman?
around forever? No, also a good guess. I think
No.
Roman was pretty
Oh.
close. I think he was like 6th or 7th on the list.
Okay, so in terms of longevity, made an appearance, which means he didn't wrestle. Fuck.
Actually, surprisingly, Roman is not even in the top 10. I guess because like he's just
Wow.
been main eventing too much or something.
Wow. I'm thinking too hard. I'm out. Top.
Randy, Kyle Orton. I don't know what this case for. Randy Orton is the answer. Randy Orton.
God damn it.
Been in forever.
The appearance confused me because it made it sound like he wasn't wrestling.
Right. I can feel you. But I guess that would only be like MVP and I'm trying to think who else made an appearance but didn't. Solo technically didn't wrestle. Okay, and number 1 at 4 hours and 59 minutes and 33 seconds, almost a full half hour over Randy Orton. He was number 6 on the first quiz, so he just missed the top 5, and that showing was in 2017. He still wrestles, but he no longer wrestles for WWE. I don't really know what else I can say without giving it away because this was the most impressive statistic I read about this, that he had made it almost 5 hours, a full half an hour over Randy Orton. Still wrestles, but not for WWE.
Still wrestles. I want to say Edge.
Ooh, that's a really good guess. It is not Edge. He does wrestle in AEW, though. Edge was number 7 on this list, just behind Shawn Michaels and above Sheamus. But yes, this person does wrestle in AEW.
Does wrestle in AEW. Was in WWE, though, at least at 2017.
Yes, and also wrestled in WCW.
Also wrestled... Ooh. Well, the two names that are coming to mind are either Christian or Samoa Joe. But I can't remember.
No to both.
No to both.
I'm just gonna give you one more hint that's gonna nail it for you. You've been memeing the shit out of him on our group chat all week.
That's a lot of memes, man.
He has a list.
Oh. Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
And
that's the end of the segment. Will just made the list for not remembering Chris Jericho. And that's the end of the first episode. That may end up being the longest episode that we ever do of our new podcast.
You're driving this bus, but you gotta like fucking tighten it up, baby.
I know. I think we went too far at the beginning, and we went a little too far on SmackDown. We're going to tighten this up a bit. Cut out the fat.
Too far.
Way too far. Way too high. And you know what? I'm just going to say right now before we say goodbye that I don't think we addressed at all the name of the podcast, but the 141 and 2/3%. Just type in 141 2/3 and see what comes up, guys. And we'll go probably into a super deep dive on that sooner rather than later. But that's the end of the show. I think I'm going to say the winner of this show. I say the winner of this week for just being a really pushing that heel turn. He's so close to getting it over because the fans do not want to boo him. But I'm going to give the winner of this week. We didn't talk about him much, but we will talk about him. Is Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is my pick for the winner of this show. What about you?
Drew McIntyre is a really good pick. Well,
it's unfortunate because we didn't really talk about him much, but there is a lot to talk about him from this week.
There is a lot to talk about. I think in terms of just like memorable moments, I'm gonna go with our boy R-Truth.
Oh, fair enough. That is always a good pull. That's always a good pick.
And that's gonna be my answer every week forever.
Until he dies.
Until he dies.
Okay, well, that's it for this episode. We might pop in with a little quick Raw review from last week before the Raw comes out this week, maybe on the weekend. But if not, maybe we'll just fly through it on the next episode next week. But thank you for tuning in to our first episode. We hope that you make this a weekly occurrence. We promise they won't be this long until at least the WrestleMania episode, which is going to be insane. That's it for this week. I'm Tyler.
I'm Will.
And keep on fighting. We got to come up with a tagline. Shit.
We'll see you at Sacrifice this Sunday.